Welcome back. Well, friends, we have some breaking news. Breaking news today. It's the Jehovah's Witnesses. They lose at the Human Rights Court. So we're going to cover this loss to see what it's all about, what kind of loss it is. Well, your blood card that you carry, if you carry one. I carried one for 30 years, one of those Jehovah's Witness blood cards. Let's look at it. No blood, advance decision to refuse specified medical treatment. It folds out and it's kind of like a little contract every year when I was in it. And I quit in 2012, so I did this for 30 years. Every year there was a meeting at the Kingdom Hall. The elders would all be around. Your book study overseer kind of took responsibility for his book study group to make sure everyone had signed that document, even the kids, underage children. There was a special document, another one for the children. So we're going to get into this. It's now all obsolete. This has gone through a lot of courts. There's been a lot of legal battles. Jehovah's Witnesses have won some, the courts have won some. So we're going to take a look at what's happened here in this case. So let's take a look at the news. Now, this is the court case. It's the European Court of Human Rights, the fourth section. This is a case of Lindholm and the estate after of Leif Lindholm versus Denmark. So this happened in Denmark, and this was released November 5th, today's date. So I've been reading this all day. It's a 37-page document. I've been going over it just to get an idea what goes on in this kind of a court. It's a big court, right? Well, actually not. European Court of Human Rights doesn't have a lot of meat hooks to it. Really, the bottom courts, the governmental courts, have more power to change decision. Now, the European Court of Human Rights, what are they? Well, let's take a look at them really quickly here. This is a little document, European Court of Human Rights questions and answers. Well, who are they? Number one, the European Court of Human Rights is an international court based in Strasbourg, France. It consists of a number of judges equal to the number of member states of the Council of Europe that have ratified the Convention for the Protection of Human Rights and Fundamental Freedoms, currently 46. The court's judges sit in their individual capacity, do not represent any state, and in dealing with applications, the court is assisted by a registry consisting mainly of lawyers from all members of states, who are also known as legal secretaries, and they are entirely independent of their country of origin and do not represent either state. So here's what they do. Their human rights treaties they make. The convention which establishes the court lays down how it's to function, list of rights. So freedom of expression, freedom of thought. I'm going to get out of the way here. Where am I? Video capture device. And we kind of go through some of these, I guess, here. It was new to me, we hear about it, we read about it. So here's what it is: freedom of thought, conscience, and religion. So this is why Jehovah's Witnesses are using this freedom of religion. They make application. They try to get there. They like to get here. And so these guys, this court likes to make a remedy, a right to vote for elections, all kinds of things. So I was looking at who pays for it. Who covers all these costs in the European Court. So on costs, as far as I could find, the Council of the Europe pays for the legal costs of the European Council of the Human Rights. The ECHR, the Council of Europe's budget, is funded by contributions from its 46 member states based on their population and gross domestic product. And the budget covers the salaries of the court staff, judges, as well as other expenses like legal aid, travel, and publications. And the ECHR is responsible for making judgments, but the Committee of Ministers of Council of Europe is responsible for ensuring that the judgments are carried out and compensation is paid. Okay, well that's what we have on the ECHR, the ECHR, the Council of Europe, European Court of Human Rights. Now I'll put a link to this case. It's 37 pages, like I said, um, on the attachments. If you go to the more section on this video, you'll find it, a link. I went to Jehovah's Witness website. There's nothing under news on this. They wouldn't have something right away. Watching Watchtower, they're the ones that queued us off. Thank you very much. They do a wonderful job. And they also pinned this article. This is an article from Ekstra Bladet from Denmark. And they caught it. Jehovah's Witnesses lose at the Human Rights Court, a case dating back to 2014. This is a 10-year case. It's come to an end. And that's why I was looking for costs, because who pays for all those costs if you lose at the end? Well, Jehovah's Witnesses, they'd probably have to pay all their legal costs all the way up to get there. But it says that the Human Rights Court will pay for its lawyers and its judges. So Jehovah's Witnesses, that will all be voluntary work, contributions, worldwide work, they call it. And that's how they'll pay for 10 years of these going to court. Now, granted, it's probably going to fall under the person's name, this Lindholm. They're the ones that have the case, but guaranteed Jehovah's Witness lawyers all the way through. And guaranteed they probably signed some kind of a clause saying that if they win, all that money or big portion of that money would go to the Jehovah's Witness church. That's how they would do it. So that's all a bit of supposition on my part, but that's what I would think after being in there for a lot of years and seeing what happens. Now, Ekstra Bladet also put this article up. Jehovah's Witnesses refuse to accept blood, tried and dead boy. This is a little older article. Members of the Jehovah's Witness carry a so-called blood card, which in the event of an accident must document that the person does not want to receive blood, even if it could save the person's life. You see, this is just weird for a lot of people. This is just out of this world that anybody could want to choose death over life. Well, this practice may have cost a 15-year-old Danish boy his life, because that's what happened. So there's the Ekstra Bladet. They're bringing out a lot of stuff on Jehovah's Witnesses, and they're doing a great job. Okay, well, let's get right into the court documents. I highlighted a few points for you. So the pinned copy, you can pull off a PDF like I have done. And so I just got the PDF here, so we can blow it down and look at it, thumb through it really quick. So I highlighted a few points here. We're going to swing through them. Here's the first one. So on September of 2014, they call him L now. This is Lindholm. They just abbreviated it. Age 67. So he was admitted to the emergency unit. He fell through a roof and he was unconscious for a period of time. And it wasn't too long after he received a blood transfusion, but not right away. They knew that they had him on file. They knew from previous visits he did not want to take blood. He was a JW. And so anyways, he came in. He was conscious. There was no discussion of the blood. But then he was unconscious, and then his family came in and had a bunch of discussions about the blood. But here's all the events. There was a lot of stuff that went on. His hemoglobin went down, and they still didn't give him blood because they wanted to adhere to the thing. But then on September 22nd, that's only 4 days. The chief physician said, look, his hemoglobin level, his blood counts are way down. So he gave him a blood transfusion, gave him a bag of blood, brought his blood count back up, but he didn't become conscious again. And then October, about a month later, he actually died. And the dispute of his death that wasn't linked to the blood transfusion at all. The guy, fell through a roof. He had hemorrhaging in his head, hemorrhaging in his shoulder, hemorrhaging in his hip. 67 years old. He was on blood thinners to begin with. So, this is just about the blood doctrine. This whole court case is all about that card that Jehovah's Witnesses have been carrying in their wallets for decades. So here's what happens after a case, just so you guys know what Jehovah's Witnesses like to do. Well, October 21st, he died. Well, October, November, December, not 2 months later, they filed a complaint with the ombudsman of the hospital, claiming that blood transfusions had been administered against his will. So it took them about a year to get back, October the next year, and they had to make a patient safety board for this whole thing. This is what hospitals have to do for JWs so they don't get their asses sued off. Then October 2015, December 15, that's a year later, the safety authority said there's no problems. We find the university free and clear. They did their treatment best they could. So then on the next year, December 16th, a year later, they started proceedings in a district court against patient safety authority, against the said that he didn't answer correctly. So this went up the board, excuse me, on August 10th of 2018, 2 years later, the district court, it was in the district court, referred to the case to the high court. And then by a judgment of December 7th, the high court found partly for the applicant and kind of for the doctors. They went both ways with this. And then this went to an appeal. The judgment went to the Supreme Court of Denmark. And the 7 judges unanimously found that the hospital was free and clear. They found against the applicant for the following reasons. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out because we don't want to get into all of that. That gives you the gist of it. So here's a few of the highlights. The Supreme Court finds that there was a legal basis in the Health Act for the blood transfusion given to L when he was unconscious, and regardless of his advanced directories, that he refuses blood. They didn't care, regardless. There's an act that says they can save people's lives. So we come all the way down, and it was there since 2007. So Jehovah's Witnesses brought this out. Good on them. Now this is fought once and for all. Now, the European Convention on Human Rights, they'll deal with this. And in this, I was looking at, they pulled up Moscow, and I thought that was interesting because Russia said, you know what? We don't even want them as a religion because of this, refusing potentially life-saving medical treatments on religious grounds. It's a problem for us, they said, involving a conflict. On one hand, the state's interest in protecting the lives and the health of the citizen, and on the other hand, the individual's right to personal autonomy in the sphere of physical integrity and religious beliefs. So they brought all of the Russia stuff in. They even brought some of Spain stuff up. This is a huge thing, folks, a huge thing for the European Union. It's costing millions of dollars. Jehovah's Witnesses suing the heck out of everyone every time someone breathes the wrong way on them, does something wrong, saves their life in court, they'll sue you. So it happened in Spain. They sued the doctors for saving their life with a blood transfusion in court. Okay, well, the present position is that an advance directive refusing blood transfusions or other medical treatment has a persuasive influence but is not binding if it is a matter of life-saving treatment. For example, an unconscious patient. So this is more about unconscious patients because there is rights for conscious patients. If, we have to have rights, we don't want to admit ourselves into a hospital and have them insert some kind of a transmitter into us and monitor us, right? We want to have rights. So we're not against rights. Now, as stated in Section 19 of the Health Act, it allows for life-saving treatment to be administered to an unconscious patient, regardless of any advance directive from him or her about not wanting to be treated. And the rule is general and it is not restricted to blood transfusions. Therefore, the blood transfusion that was given to L was not a violation of Article 14 of the Convention on Human Rights. read in conjunction with Articles 8 and 9. And then it says conclusion and costs. So that's why I was looking up the legal costs, because it doesn't mention anything more about the legal costs here. So I'm just thinking JW org had to pay a lot of money to take this to the Supreme Court. Or let's put it correctly, the contributors. So if you're a contributor of JW org, you've helped to bring this to the Supreme Court. Thank you very much. So now you don't have to carry that darn blood directive. So what are they saying? Well, let's zoom out and see if we can get the exact answer from the court case. When you go into the doctor, it's between you and the doctor. Section 19, if a patient who temporarily or permanently lacks the capacity to give consent who or is under 15 years of age, like that kid that died in Denmark, right, didn't take blood because of the Jehovah's Witness doctrine, well, they can give him blood. Regardless, he's under 15 years of age. It's a situation where immediate treatment is required for the patient's survival or to improve the patient's chancing of survival in long term or for a significantly better outcome of the treatment. A healthcare professional may initiate or continue treatment without obtaining consent from patient or from the person with the custody of the patient or from the close relatives or the guardian. And this is a good rule. I know there's many situations where children are in the org, even baptized, young kids at 12, and then later on in life, 18, they get out on their own, they quit. And they're so glad that they were never in a compromising situation, having to give up their life for a blood doctrine originated by men. And we're going to look at a few scriptures, and I'll show you clearly how the scriptures talk about this. This is something that's made by men. So let's take a look further. So children, Jehovah's Witness cards won't work. Where the patient is fully conscious and adult, and the adult's consent must be obtained in compliance with the rules of 6 and 7. Now, what they're saying is the adult meeting with your elders at the Kingdom Hall, signing those cards, waste of time. You're going to make your decision not when you meet with your doctor when you're healthy, but when you're sick. You see, when you're sick, if you're ill, you're going to meet with your doctor. They're going to talk about it then. Then you will make a decision with your doctor and you'll give consent or not. It's up to you. So a fully conscious person aged 15 to 17, informed consent must be obtained in compliance with the rule in Section 8. So informed consent between the ages of 15 to 17 means if you're mentally mature, they're going to look at that. So that's what that means. So then it says this provision applies in all cases where a patient does not have the capacity to give informed consent. And that is, it applies to children and adolescents under 15 years of age, to immature children, adolescents aged 15 to 17, and patients who permanently lack the capacity to give consent. So if someone was mentally ill or something like that, or Alzheimer's, it even mentioned in the report. So they covered everything. It was a really good court case, answering all these questions once and for all in a very fair way. Now it says if carrying out treatment without the use of the blood or the blood products is contrary to a healthcare professional's ethics standpoint, that healthcare professional is not obliged to carry out that treatment, and the patient must be referred to another healthcare professional unless there is a need for urgent medical care. See Section 42 of the Authorization of Healthcare Professionals and Medical Activities Act. So if they don't like the way the hospital works, they can go elsewhere. So if they have the money, a Jehovah's Witness can go to the Mayo Clinic. There are some blood-free clinics. Let's say you had to get an operation on your heart or something like that, other facilities aren't equipped for it. They're going to talk to you. All the medical facilities are really good that way. They're not trying to impede on your rights, but sometimes, you can't send a mechanic in to repair your car motor without the proper tools. He might need a wrench. He's not a wrenchless mechanic shop. Do they have those? Wrenchless mechanic? Okay, poor illustration. Okay, well, let's go to section 48 here. It says section 15, 19, and 24 of the Health Act set out how to balance the saving of a person's life or enabling a significantly better outcome of treatment against patient autonomy and the right to make a binding advance directive, such as an advanced medical directive refusing blood transfusions. When balancing these considerations, the legislature made a choice in favor of protecting citizens' lives and health, in favor of patient safety, to the effect that advanced medical directives are not legally binding for healthcare staff, except for directives on the medical treatment of inter alia and terminally ill patients. So they're ineffective. Jehovah's Witnesses might as well throw those cards out the door. Okay, let's see what else we have here. We're going to skim down. Now we're talking about Article 8, the emergency situation. And they said when, because of an emergency situation, the appropriate consent cannot be obtained, any medical necessary intervention may be carried out immediately for the benefit of the health and the individual concerned. So no more waiting around for lawyers and court orders. In these emergency situations, the doctors can just save lives. People are unconscious, just save their lives. Article 9 previously expresses the wishes relating to medical intervention by a patient who is not at the time of the intervention in a state to express his or her wishes shall be taken into account. So if they know that you're a Jehovah's Witness, they're going to do whatever they can and take that into account and try to find some alternative way of saving you. And if you read the whole study here, they did everything for that Mr. L, that Jehovah's Witness here in this case. They tried the vitamin K, they tried this treatment, they tried that treatment. And I personally have been involved with Jehovah's Witnesses that have been losing their blood count and almost dying. In the particular case I was friends with, the lady made it. So, anyways, it's a dicey roll. Now, let's just go down a little further. What else do we have here? The law. This is the law. And Article 8, it talks about there shall be no interference, for the protection of health. So it's the interests for the protection of health, Article 9. I wanted to bring Article 9 out because we're ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and we seem to have no freedoms when it comes to freedom of thought, freedom of conscience. It's in this article. Everyone has the right to freedom of thought and conscience and religion, which is belief. So if I believe I want to quit going to the Jehovah's Witness religion, I can't. And it says here in this article, it says this right includes freedom to change his religion or belief and freedom, and either alone or in a community with others. So if I'm in the congregation of others, the community, I can change my religion. I can talk about that. I should be able to talk about that. And it says here to manifest his religion and belief. So I can manifest it. I should be able to manifest my changed beliefs without repercussions. And it says in worship, teaching, practice, and observance. But you see, we get ostracized, we lose all our family ties, we get publicly named. Even if you're not baptized, you get publicly named. You get people will shun you if you're not following their ways. So let's say I believe that a blood transfusion is okay. Saving life is okay. I can prove it from the Bible. And I'm going to do that next. So stick in there and we'll show you. Okay, so I'm just about done here. Um, go all the way down, all the way down to the conclusion here. And it's way down here. Okay, so the overall conclusion, in light of all the above mentioned considerations, the court considers the reasons relied upon the Supreme Court in its judgment of February 2022. So they're saying that the Supreme Court made the right decision. They're relevant, necessary in a democratic society, and proportionate to the aims pursued and named of protection of health. So you see, people can in the right frame of mind. They're healthy. They're at the Kingdom Hall. All the elders are around you. Oh, I'll sign that card. I'll sign a card. I'll put it in my wallet, and you forget about it. But then when your life is in front of you, and you're in the you're being pushed down a gurney into the operating room, and a doctor's running beside you and says, "We've seen the card. You're conscious. You've lost a lot of blood, sir. We're gonna have to get blood into you really quick, or we think you're gonna die within hours. Now you have a decision to make, and you can make the decision, and you might make a different decision than you made at the Kingdom Hall because you might just want to stay living, and it's private. No one knows of your decision. You just keep living. HLC might get their nose in there depending on how you checked into the hospital or how you are checked in. So, the courts just want to save your lives. That's what this is all about. Life over death. And I'm going to show you something else on that that's quite interesting from the Bible. Now, it says here, this whole court, this was all about Jehovah's Witnesses, all this time and money. And keep in mind, folks, over the last 100 years, there's been millions of dollars spent in the courts with Jehovah's Witnesses. They're suing people all the time. Now, it says it is only for Jehovah's Witnesses that a treating doctor therefore becomes the gatekeeper of their rights. So not the Watchtower, folks. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, the Watchtower is no longer your gatekeeper on this planet. If you want to go into a public hospital and your insurance cover it, or you want to get some help, well, your doctor is your gatekeeper. And that's what it says here. He's the gatekeeper of your rights to your personal integrity and autonomy and the satisfaction of your religious conscience. So get yourself a Jehovah's Witness doctor, get signed into the Mayo Clinic, move there. But if you're in an accident on the highway and you go to the nearest hospital, they're putting blood in you if you're unconscious. They're going to save your life. And you can't sue them. No more of this suing. This is all done here just today, November 5th, pursuant to Rule whatever, 7723 of the Rules Court, all signed and so forth. Okay, well, that's what we have for you today on this subject. Now, the next part, we'll go quickly here. We're just going to take you to the Bible quickly. If you're a Jehovah's Witness, you know Acts 15 and 20, or ex-Jehovah's Witness. And it says to abstain from the things polluted by idols, from sexual immorality, and from what is being strangled, and from blood. So we all know that if a strangled animal is not bled, and the blood is in the meat, and Jehovah's Witnesses do not eat blood of any sort. If it's animal blood, and this is all pertaining to animal blood, the Bible, folks, this is not about human blood. There's nothing in the Bible talking about human blood. This is animal blood and eating it. It's all to do with that. The Jews had a law from Leviticus saying that they should abstain from eating the blood. It should be poured to the ground. And they're very religious about that. So when Jesus came along after he died, the apostles, they were going out to the Gentiles, and the Jews said, we want those Gentiles circumcised. And they said, no, that's not going to happen. So a couple of the apostles went down and met with the Jews and said, well, the most we're going to do is not do the blood thing, not have sexual immorality, and stay away from things polluted, just like what it says in the scriptures. But then Paul says this. He says, eat whatever is sold in the meat market without raising any question on the ground of conscience. Now, what does that mean? This is all about blood, eating blood. Strangled meat has blood in it. So we open up that scripture, and I wanted to read it a little further. And it says, do all to the glory of God. So all things are lawful, but not all things are healthful. All things are lawful, but not all things build up. So that's what we're going to look at. Okay, so let's look at this. Paul says here, eat whatever is sold in the meat market without raising any question on the ground of conscience. So, if meat is strangled or whatever, he's saying, don't worry about it. He says, for the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. And then in verse 27, he says, if one of the unbelievers invites you to dinner and you are disposed to go, he says, eat whatever is set before you without raising any question on the ground of conscience. But if someone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice, then don't eat it for the sake of the one who informed you and for the sake of conscience. And he says in verse 29, I do not mean for your conscience, but his. For why should my liberty be determined by someone else's conscience? why should I abstain from blood because of the 11 men that rule JW.org? Why should I? You see, the Bible puts it that way. That's how Paul puts it. He says, if someone says to you this has been offered, then don't eat it, like a Jew, right? This is all about the Jews, not about the Jehovah's Witnesses. They're JWs. They're not Jews. And guess what? All Jews accept blood transfusions. They have no issues with it. It's a medical treatment. This is a Jehovah's Witness thing in New York where 11 men want to control you to the point of you dying. Well, let's just read further and see if that's really what is said in the Bible. Well, it says, but if someone says to you, this has been offered in sacrifice, don't eat it. A Jew for the sake of conscience. He says, I don't mean for your conscience, but for his. Why should my liberty be determined by someone else? If I partake with thankfulness, why am I denounced because of that for which I give thanks? You see, I used to go to my mom's place, and up here in Canada, wieners, hot dogs, they put byproducts in them sometimes. Some do, some don't. If you buy a certain brand, it says there's no byproducts in them. The Schneiders, kosher meat. A lot of people go to Costco. So, but if someone says to you this, he says it's not about someone else's conscience, but he says, if I partake with thankfulness, why am I denounced? I can eat whatever I want. It's my conscience. So then he ends up saying, so whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all things for the glory of God. He says, give no offense to the Jews. They're the ones that had this blood thing, right? And circumcision, and they have a lot of rules, 620 rules or something. He says, don't offend them, or to the Greeks, or to the Church of God, or of Scientology, or the Mormons, or whoever. Don't offend people. But he says, just as I try to please everyone in everything I do, he says, not seeking my own advantage, but that of the many. What? So that they may die in a medical treatment because they're refusing blood transfusions because of 11 men in New York that guide JW.org. And that's all there. They just follow that like it's the Bible, but it's not. Well, what does Paul say? He says that they may be saved. So they may be saved. This is exactly what the doctors want to do, is save you. So you may be saved. And they want to do their best to conscience, but they want to save you. So folks, I'm going to pin this so you guys can read this in the Bible. You can go to your Jehovah's Witness Bible. It reads the same thing. So that's all I have for you today, folks. Just like Jesus says, if it's a Sabbath and a lamb falls into the well, he said to the Jews, what are you going to do? You're going to let it die? It's a Sabbath. You're not supposed to work. What are you going to do? No, they're going to save the lamb. They're going to save the lamb. And how much more precious is your child? Your little child, your baby. Jehovah's Witnesses let their babies die if it involves a blood transfusion. You see, Jehovah's Witnesses themselves do not read the scriptures. They follow the elders at the Kingdom Hall once every year and sign those little blood cards because they believe that these 11 men are their link to everlasting life on earth. That's what they believe. I believe that myself. I was coerced, but then after a while, I woke up. I realized that JW.org is the golden calf. It's the golden calf that they follow because even now in their ministry, they're taught, and they have a little business card. It takes everyone to JW.org, and they teach everyone by movie, no longer by Bible. So it's an apostate religion. I advise most people to get out. It's a cult. I advise everyone that. And yeah, they have a lot of work to do, Jehovah's Witnesses. But here they're losing in court. They lost this one. The blood cards are obsolete. Now it's time to address them on the freedom of religion, a freedom of expression. We shouldn't be outlawed. We shouldn't be punished. We shouldn't be disciplined because we have a freedom of expression within that religion. So these are all things that are coming, folks. And the more Jehovah's Witnesses themselves pay the money and bring this all the way up to Supreme Court, they're doing the work for us. So thank you very much. to jw.org. See you in the next video. And remember, folks, keep living your life with love. And we'll always choose life over death. Bye for now.